a perfect segue coming into this next fight, because you have to look at what happened to Anderson Silva tonight and go, do you want to do this again?
Well, I mean,
38 years old, you broke your leg, and it was, according to Ariel Helwani, Anderson Silva was backstage on a stretcher screaming. I mean, he obviously broke his tibia and his fibia. I mean, if the skin breaks, you're going to see bone. Thankfully, we didn't have to see that.
Fracture,
I
mean, it was a gruesome injury. I mean, and before that, I mean, if we talk about this fight, Chris Weidman had won the first round.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Decidedly. And he is somebody just has Anderson Silva's number. He doesn't fall for his tactics.
Look at Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn. Mm-hmm. You have to look no further than that. And then, trust me, it just sucks when you have your heart invested in a fighter and a guy you like to see. I'm a big BJ Penn fan, a big Anderson fan, and you just watch him lose. And look, I'm not knocking Chris Weidman, but he dominated 2 out of what have they fought? 3 rounds now?
3 rounds.
So it's just like,
yeah. And you know, when I was telling George before we turned the cameras on, I'm like, you know, it's funny. I right now think Anderson Silva should just retire. And why? Because you don't have anything else to prove. You're 38 years old. You just got a compound fracture. That's 2 years in the sport that is evolving. It's just like with GSP. You know, we've watched 2 of the greatest athletes in the sport probably say this is the end, because you can't take time off in the sport. You see how good these guys get in a year. And when you're not training for a year, maybe a year and a half, possibly 2, the sport's going to pass you up. Yeah. I don't care how good you are. And Anderson Silva, and I think because I was such a big Anderson Silva fan, I was kind of like the Fedor fans. We used to talk about Fedor, and George and I never were huge on Fedor's bandwagon because we just didn't follow him that much. And when we first got into talking about MMA, everybody talked about Fedor, and we're like, he's not that impressive. And we looked at fighters that could look like they were beaten. Brett Rogers, Andrei Arlovski almost beat him when they fought the last time. And Fedor won the fights, but he just wasn't as impressive as earlier in his career. And I think that's what you're starting to see with Anderson, with the Chael Sonnen fights, with these Weidman fights. And at 38 years old and now coming off this gruesome injury, man, you got to just say, you know what, just, you know, fight Roy Jones Jr. in a boxing match.
Yeah, he can't stand up.
Yeah.
Is he going to jump around on one leg?
Well, the pogo stick.
Still, you got to push. That's going to become uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's not doing it for 2 years.
So, Anderson's obviously out, going to be out. Let's just say he's done. Weidman took little to no damage in that fight. So, January, February, March, April. April or May, he fights again?
Weidman, yeah. I mean, who does he fight?
Vitor. That's the number one.
And Vitor, you know.
And I'm going to tell you right now, Vitor's not going to be easy.
No. I when I look at who Weidman has to fight, this middleweight class, it's just like with GSP in the welterweight class. It's getting, even if Silva had pulled off this fight, I'm thinking, man, there is a lot of good guys. He would still have 8 more fights in his contract. There are a lot of good guys that he would
Belfort, Machida, Jacare.
Yeah.
Those 3 guys right there are capable of beating, in my opinion, beating Weidman, but Weidman's also capable of beating them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Weidman's solid. I mean, he's definitely solid. To me, honestly, you get to the point where you see these guys now and you're saying, okay, let's see how versatile they are. Let's how good they are against different fighting styles, because Weidman's beat probably the greatest martial artist ever. And ended his streak and everything. So now you start to think, okay, how can he fight against this particular guy? And you know, styles make fights. How can he fight up against this guy? Machida is fucking all over the place.
Right. Machida would be a tough fight, but like I told Kevin, Machida's so hot and cold. Mm-hmm. Like, Machida comes in, wins the belt at 205, and then promptly just doesn't pull it together. And then wins 1 or 2 more, falls off, there's no consistency. Me personally, the guy I think who could take the belt from Weidman, I'm not going to say easily, but give him a run for his money, is Jacare.
Yeah, Jacare.
Because we knocked Jacare for not having stand-up in his last fight. He TKOs for a win. Mm-hmm. And before that, everyone says he's got the best BJJ in all of MMA. So I'm thinking, if his hands get better, there's going to be some problems at 185.
Yeah, there's going to be problems. I mean, and we were looking at when they showed the top 10. It is now a stacked division. The welters and the middles are stacked. I mean, it's just so much talent coming into the sport. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't see people holding belts for long like you saw 2 and 3 years ago. I don't see any 6-year runs anymore.
No, I think John Jones is the next to lose his belt.
Yeah, and he almost lost it this year. This year, you saw all the great guys in their classes get just either upset or really fought to the point where you're like, okay, did they win?
Well, actually, I correct that. I think the next person to technically lose their belt is going to be Dominic Cruz when he fights Renan Barão. Because Renan Barão is the temporary champ. And to come off an ACL injury and have to fight Renan Barão,
Renan Barros is the interim champion, everybody, but I will let you know that Vegas has him as the favorite.
And Renan Barros defended this interim title, I think, twice since acquiring it, which I find absolutely hilarious. Yeah. So I think that's one reason why this rule's been put in place. But that next card, and how do you feel about this UFC pass? This UFC thing you can purchase. For instance, the next UFC card is January 4th. No?